Hi everyone, in today's video I would like to talk about two cameras that I own. Those would be the Fuji X100V and the Leica Q3. I personally feel that these cameras fit the category of an everyday camera, so I just want to make a video briefly comparing how they actually suit that category, and maybe that will help people deciding between cameras if they're planning to buy either one of them. So let's start with the Fuji X100V. This camera was launched back in 2020. It has been extremely popular. It's still very hard to get right now. I know Fuji has stopped production of it, but the secondhand market still doesn't seem to be flooded with them. It's still very hard to get a hold of one. It's undeniable that this camera became very popular and became an everyday camera for a lot of people, especially for street photographers. It could have been because of the default film presets that were available in the camera itself, or, in my point of view, was because the community film recipes. So those are actually presets that people would be able to share with each other on forums, through videos, or even through the Fuji X Weekly app, which is a fantastic app. If you have a Fuji camera, you already know about it. If you don't, get it. It's free and you can actually try different recipes, and I think that's one key selling point about this camera. So yes, it doesn't have IBIS. Yes, it's an APS-C, and autofocus is a bit of a hit and miss at times, but that didn't stop it from getting the popularity that it did. I think the Fuji colors are fantastic, and this camera is literally a statement to that. This camera also has internal ND, which to me was a cherry on top and made me buy this camera because I don't really have to carry ND filters anymore. So I just need to bring this camera and take pictures. So I don't really have to take anything else. That to me is what an everyday camera should be like. One thing that I really hated about this camera was the app. The app, if you have a Fuji, before 2 weeks ago, it was super hard to use. It was honestly unusable and you just didn't want to deal with it. But Fuji thankfully released a new app 2 weeks ago, which transformed the whole experience. Right now it's super smooth and I'm again in love with this camera again, just because the whole experience with the app has enabled me to actually get the pictures out. Now, the Leica Q3. It's a full frame sensor, and obviously the 60 megapixel dwarfs the X100V as well as the video specs. But when people bought the X100V, they didn't really buy it for the videos, so I don't think that is something that would still turn people away from the X100V. But the Q3 is a big leap to the Q2. The autofocus has been improved much more than it was before, and the tilt screen is a nice feature to have, especially for me being a street photographer. Taking pictures on odd angles is something that I do very often, so the Q3 really sells it to me. And obviously you have the famous Leica lens, the Summilux 28mm, which renders much better quality than it does on the Fuji X100V. One thing that people have not been talking about as much is the Leica looks that is built in to the camera itself. I think this is a way that Leica is trying to follow Fuji in terms of having film recipes within the camera, and I think that's a great step. I think it's very promising if they allow Leica Q users to share film recipes across the community, which will then boost even more the popularity of the Leica Qs. I think if Leica does proceed with that, it'll be a great selling point. Now begs the question, is the Fuji X100V era gone? I don't really think it's gone, and I'll tell you why. The price point is a big difference, right? So we have this camera being 4 times cheaper than the Leica Q3. For some, the price point will just put them off straight away, and it's a very valid reason, especially because you don't really, for everyday camera, you don't really need the video specs. You don't really need the 6 megapixels. Yes, it's great to have because you can crop in, but it's not, from my perspective, a key criteria. I think if you buy the X100V, you'll still be very happy and it will actually exceed your expectations. The whole experience with this camera, especially with the new app, is going to make it very enjoyable and you won't really have any regrets buying this, especially if you're not buying because of the video specs. But for me, as I like to take videos, I really like the ability of actually shooting videos on the Leica Q3, and there are perks of having a Leica. Like I mentioned before, the rendering of the lens is definitely better than the Fuji. So for me, the upgrade is worth the price just because of all the benefits that I just mentioned. So if you're in the market for an everyday camera, really reflect about what you're actually looking for in an everyday camera. I think only you can decide if the price point is worthwhile or not. But all I can tell you is that no matter what, I know this camera will make people happy because it's really great for the value that you're paying for it. This one, people might get disappointed because they paid a lot more and they might not get the exact same experience as they would get on the X100V. So with that, if you have any kind of comments or question about these two cameras, let me know in the comments below. I definitely want to do a more in-depth review of this camera, as I've been using it daily to try to actually understand more about this camera. I feel that after a while, I'll post a review on this and try to basically share my experience with the Leica Q3, especially because this is the first Leica that I'm owning. So that's a wrap for this video. I hope you